Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming $5,000 Modern Open. I'm Tandy, joined by Ross Merriam. So hi, Ross.
Hi, Ross.
We got 6 rounds down. Unfortunately, we have a lot of draws up at the top of tables.
Yeah, well, not unfortunately for them. It's
Oh
always
yeah,
nice
they're
to
all
be able to
very
just
happy.
shake the hand, take a little time off, maybe get something to eat, and relax for the top eight. So many of our players at the top of the standings were able to do just that, and we will be bringing you some matches from a little bit further down the standings. Players still battling it out for pride and prizes.
Yep, and the players we are going to be watching this round include a very cool deck.
Oh,
One Michael Mornelli, who's 4-2, playing Dimir Scam, featuring a brand new card from Thunder Junction.
yeah. We got to see a little bit of him earlier in the day, but we want to see more because Sataru the Infiltrator is a really cool one. We can
Yeah.
get that one on the screen, Director.
2 cost, 2/3 menace. Whenever you don't pay mana for a thing, you draw a card, as long as it's not a token.
Yeah, so whenever a creature enters the battlefield, a non-token, if you didn't cast it or spent no mana on it, you draw a card, which means when you evoke a grief, it enters, you draw a card, and then if it goes to the graveyard and comes back with Not Dead After All, ooh, you draw another card.
Ooh,
That's
nice.
2 cards on the top of the grief scam, so a really great combo there with those evoke elementals, and it is also a Dimir card, so it pitches to either grief or subtlety.
Yeah. It's also a 2-drop, which sometimes the deck is sorely lacking outside of Dothy Voidwalker, but Orcish Bowmaster fills that role quite nicely as well. The other side of the table, Mornelli's going to be facing off against Jacob Endicott. We've watched him on camera once today. 4-2 on Domain Zoo, and that's a very counterspell heavy version, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, very interesting build. Not as many creatures known to Shoba Brawlers or Wild Nikados, anything like that. Just playing the premium creatures. Territorial Kavu, Scion of Draco, Rogavan. And also has a couple subtleties and a couple Murktide Regents to go along with this more blue-heavy build with 3 Counterspell, 3 Force of Negation in the main, and a little bit less burn. Only 3 Lightning Bolt, only 2 copies of Tribal Flame. So trying to be a little bit more controlling, a little slower, and a little bit more powerful of a deck than more traditional domain zoo lists.
All right. Well, players are seated and ready to go in the feature match area. So let's head on down there and watch the final match of Swiss before we get to the top 8. We got 6 rounds in the books. This is the final round of Swiss. Number 7. We had 78 players show up for today's tournament, vying for $5,000 in cash and prizes, as well as a ton of leaderboard points for the at-large and Player of the Year, as well as qualification to the Invitational at the end of the year. All right. Turn 1 preordained from Mornelli. No play from Endicott. Likely going to fetch either one of those Surveil lands or a Triumph to unlock Domain.
It has a lot of options along those lines. Zagoth Triome or Savai Triome in the mana base. And then for Surveillance has a Thundering Falls, a Meticulous Archive, and a Hedge Maze.
Okay, top 2. Careful. Both on the bottom. Gonna draw.
Stinky.
Bye-bye. Endicott gonna fetch with Flutterstrand. Let's see what the find is. That could give us a little bit of insight into what's in hand.
Yeah, unless Endicott is playing a Scion of Draco on turn 2, I would guess this will be one of the Surveil lands. That is Savai Triumph, so I'm expecting a Scion.
Okay, let's see if that's the play. Endicott unlocking Domain with that Savai Triumph as long as the next land is Breeding Pool, I believe.
Yeah. That'll complete it.
Savai Triumph is an interesting choice for Tri-land, considering we are multiple counterspells in the deck, but counterspell is not normally something you need to play on turn 2 in Modern.
It's one of very few non-blue producing lands. And importantly, Territorial Kavu and Expressive Iteration are the multicolor cards in the list, so you don't want any combination of Triumph plus Shockland that can't cast those cards.
Right, good call.
And Breeding Pool plus Savai Triumph does it, as does Zagoth Triumph plus Sacred Foundry.
Here's a Sign of Draco, Mornelli. 2 mana at the ready. Let's see. He's got an answer or perhaps some pressure to fight back against the Sign of Draco. This 12 costs 4/4. It doesn't really cost 12. Much like its predecessor, Draco, from original Invasion block. It gets a cost reduction for each of your domain types, and in this case, the domain types are much easier to get these days. Instead of casting Harrow to go get basic lands, you just fetch up some Trions and dual lands.
Almost always costs 2 mana, though we've seen players cast it for both 4 and 10 today.
Yes, there was the Urzatron domain deck that was playing the Leyline of the Guild Pact in there too. What a world we live in. Alright. Endicott draws for turn. Dalthy Voidwalker is the response. We'll see if Endicott has any more pressure to back this up or decides to play it kind of tight knit, close to the chest with some interaction counter magic. I see a Kavu and a Force of Negation. That could be the sequence.
It'd be pretty solid. Keep the pressure on. Ensure that you have counterplay to anything devastating from Morinelli.
All right, going to go back Morinelli's way. Dalthy Voidwalker can't play defense here, so this is a pure race until he's able to get one of these creatures off the table. A really bad spot for Morinelli.
Yeah, I see a Marsh Flats and a Not Dead After All in hand, but not sure what the other few cards are, but those two are not going to do a whole lot.
All right, that Flutter Strand does need to be exiled, so if they don't exile it in the next about 5-10 seconds, we'll get our spotter to go remove it. There it is, okay. Here's a Meticulous Archive as the grab from the fetch land, and we're going to go Surveillant again before we get to untap. Morinelli with no Fatal Push, no anything here to stop this creature rush. Pretty scary.
Yeah, not sure what kind of hand he kept, but bottomed both on the Preordain, so no surprise that his hand isn't great.
That's fair. Endicott here, been doing pretty well today. 4-2 record, nothing to sneeze at. Unfortunately, looks like we're going to be just on the outside looking in, but a 5-2 record could get him some much-needed leaderboard points and a top 16 finish, which is
10,000 prize wall tickets.
sure is. Get you a lot of Lord of the Rings boosters and Thunder Junction boosters. What we got here? Is this Murderous Cut?
No, it's the Kavu exiling the Preordain.
Oh, okay.
Trying to keep potential Murktide Regents in check.
Down to 1, just no response. Draws for turn to Morinelli and backs it in. Can't beat the strength of the 4-4 and the 5-5 for 2 mana.
Didn't really do much trying to beat it.
What do you want to do? You per day put 2 on the bottom, you draw a bunch of bad ones.
Morinelli's deck scammed him in that game.
Who becomes the scammer scams the scammy. All right, as these players are reaching for their sideboard, I'll have Ross take a look and give you his expert analysis. Jacob Endicott took that game, so let's start with Michael Morinelli's blue-black scam. How's he going to compensate for that loss?
Well, looking at the sideboard, he has 2 copies of Dress Down, 2 Force of Negation, 1 Overgrown Tomb to splash 3 copies of Pick Your Poison, 1 Pithing Needle, 2 Stern Scolding, 2 Subtlety, and 2 Tishana's Tidebinder. Not a ton that I love in this matchup, but you want to bring in the Pick Your Poison splashes. This is the matchup that card is why this card is so common in sideboards in the last month. So Pick Your Poison definitely coming in. I imagine Dress Down will also come in. It is excellent against Territorial Kavu because it loses the ability to assign itself any power or toughness and will become a 0/0 default and die to state-based action.
That's a bummer. That's a bad way to go out.
And I'm wondering if Tishana's Tidebinder has a lot of application. It doesn't look like it does to me, so I think just the green splash and the Dress Downs are going to come in for our Dimir Scam player.
All right, on the other side of the table, though, Jacob Endicott's Zoo deck has quite a few tools in the sideboard. What do you think is going to be coming in for him to help out against this interesting Dimir Scam build?
He has 2 copies of Alpine Moon, 2 Chalice of the Void, 2 Cursed Totem, 1 Dress Down, 2 Engineered Explosives, 1 Kozilek Butcher of Truth, 1 Mystic Repeal, 2 Pick Your Poison, and 2 Teferi Time Raveler. I like the Teferis in this matchup. There's a good number of counter spells out of the Dimir Scam deck, and the Scam itself requires you play spells at instant speed, so Teferi shuts that down as well. Bouncing, some of the bigger creatures is also solid. You can bounce a Voidwalker, you can bounce a Shielder of the Apocalypse. You can also bounce the token made by Cryptic Coat, a 2 of in the Dimir deck. That said, unclear how much he knows about what's going on with this rogue list.
Yeah, I always saw our blue-black duels and Dalthy Voidwalker and then a concession. Or Preordain. There's a Preordain in there, too. So.
Yeah, so not a ton of information for Jacob Endicott to work with. But, when you see blue cards, usually Teferi is a strong choice.
All right, well, as these players are shuffling up here for game number 2, I'm going to take this time to thank some of our sponsors. Spice Rack GG It's a brand new tournament software company that is working with us to provide the players with a unique and great experience. We're happy to help them make their product better, and they'll hopefully make our tournaments better as a result, and we appreciate being partnered with them. Thanks to Wings Etc. Grill and Pub. We are probably going to head there after the top eight's finished and get
Can't
us
wait.
some cauliflower wings and some tater tots, baby.
Jerk dots, let's go.
Thanks to Ghost Gaming, or Ghost Energy Drinks. Appreciate you. And then lastly, Ultimate Guard. We'll talk more about them later. But match is underway. Let's get back to it. We have Michael Morinelli with a pair of lands. No plays on 1 or 2. Endicott. Gonna go fetching.
It looks like Morinelli started on an Undercity Sewers, and with no cards in the graveyard, I got to assume he liked the top card and left it there with the Surreal Trigger. Which is better than last game's Preordain.
The land is Savai Triumph again, so that means plenty of turn 2 threats potentially coming down. See if Morinelli has an answer for him. I think I see a counterspell hanging out over there. All right, here's a weird one. Stern Scolding versus Territorial Kavu. At what point is Territorial Kavu checking power and toughness?
It used to be that it would be a 0/0 on the stack. These days, it will check on the stack.
Okay, good to know. So Scolding unlikely to stop the Kavu. This may be a Blood Moon's in play or something.
Yeah, the Stern Scolding does not seem like a great card to have brought in. The only target I see in the deck is Ragavan.
Yeah, it's possible Morinelli just thinks this is a more low to the ground Nikotl deck. Maybe has some pitch elementals, but it's not going to be very good here. That's for dang sure.
Wouldn't be surprised if that ends up getting pitched to a subtlety.
Used to be our reason for playing bad blue cards in Legacy. We can just pitch them to Force Will. Here's Sign of Draco on turn number 2, the card of the tournament, perhaps the card of the format. And here is Sheoldred's Edict to take care of it, to knock that 4/4 down.
Sheoldred not impressed by the card of the format.
Yeah. Bye. Sheoldred just whoops everything. Sheoldred's badass.
Morinelli really needs to get a threat down. I feel like he is the less powerful of the two decks, so needs to be taking a more aggressive posture. Or just trading, and now finds another removal spell in the second copy of Sheoldred's Edict.
It does find a green source, so pick your poisons now online.
There's not much in the way of card advantage from the Dimir deck. Cryptic Coat can end up being card advantage. And, Sataru, the Infiltrator, can generate card advantage, but it takes a lot to start doing that.
Ragavan comes down. That gets hit with the Stern Scolding we were talking about. We're going to go back Morinelli's way. Finds an Essence Flux, I believe.
Yeah, that is a singleton in the list. Works very well with the Elementals and very well with Sataru.
All right, here comes a Grief. Let's see if Endicott wants to respond or if we're going to get us scammed. Endicott going to fetch in response. My guess, Sacred Foundry coming. Need another white source maybe, but also want to hold up this Lightning Bolt in case the Grief doesn't take it. We have a protection from the Essence Flux. And if we have 2 different removal spells that cost red and white, we can maybe prepare for the Grief scam with both of them.
Well, if you're in Endicott's shoes, you're thinking not dead after all. So if he has a Leyline Binding here, although didn't get white mana, so doubted his Leyline Binding, that would have gotten completely blown out by the Essence Flux.
Oh, this is a bad timing thing. Grief going to catch an Essence Flux in response, but Force of Negation is going to stop the scam element. And it looks like that Grief. Okay, well, this ended up way better for Jacob Endicott than I thought it would.
Still ends up down a card, because there's Grief and the card exiled to it, plus the Essence Flux, trading for Force of Negation, plus that Murktide Regent, which was pitched to it, plus Lightning Bolt, and now plus the card from the Grief trigger. So a 3 for 4.
3 for 4. Hey, here's Teferi.
Or a 4 for 3.
Ruin your life.
And
Overgrown Tomb coming back to bite ya. Ooh.
we use Endicott with it was another bolt in hand, right? Or tribal,
Tribal
flames.
Flames.
So
Which can be played at instant speed off of the Teferi Plus.
and I see a fatal push in Mornelli's hand. Looks like he pushed both cards for the preordained to the bottom, just like last game. Now finds a Sataru.
Yeah, Sataru, let's get that on screen again because this is the brand new card from Thunder Junction. It's a 2-cost, 2/3 menace. Has a lot of special abilities that work with those pitch elementals. But it's going to bite a Leyline Binding, and no harm, no foul. We're going to go back Mornelli's way and see if we can cobble together some more pressure. Do have Shoulder's Edict. No, we don't. We pitched it. We have a Fatal Push.
Looks like Fatal Push, Force of Negation, and Subtlety. So this Teferi doing quite a bit of work, and Endicott deciding to send that Tribal Flames upstairs.
Yeah, says we're going to blast you. We can play it at instant speed thanks to Teferi Plus. Back Mornelli's way. Does have an answer for this Kavu.
Interesting. Decides to go for the push. Could have played out the Subtlety to pressure this Teferi. Used his mana a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah, but then you're getting attacked with a 5/5.
You're 15.
Yeah, but
you can
you're playing
5.
a Tribal Flames deck.
Well, and now we're getting Leyline Binded, and he's drew a Murktide for turn, and the Teferi at 5 loyalty checks the Murktide pretty easily. Counterspell doesn't do anything. Ooh. Can we just not cast the Murktide? There's got to be 3 cards in the graveyard.
Maybe it doesn't want to just cast it into Teferi Bounce, and now can cast it, and that might be a way that Mornelli gets back in the game.
Yeah, so patience paying off for Mornelli.
Okay.
Another Subtlety.
Maybe it wasn't a Murktide Regent, but who knows. Another Leyline Binding takes care of the Subtlety again. And now this Kavu can come in and discard a dead card and draw, or we can start munching on the graveyard to keep Murktide and other graveyard shenanigans at bay.
That appears to be the choice for Jacob Endicott.
Down to 7.
Now untap those lands. Push off the top, clears the board again.
This Teferi Time Raveler's drawn more cards than any Teferi Time Raveler I've ever seen. I don't know that I've ever seen Teferi draw 3 cards. I've only ever seen him draw 2. Alright, Endicott. Gonna go back his way. No pressure on the table thanks to those removal spells, but this Teferi really gumming up the works from Mornelli. Counter spells galore in hand.
The card advantage from Endicott, putting him ahead here. Teferi not only drawing the cards with its ability, shutting off those counter spells, just creating virtual card advantage.
One heck of a card. Alright, Archive puts a Guild Pact into the graveyard. Find Engineer Explosives? Yeah, I just didn't know what he's playing. It's okay. We'll get better sideboarding after this game. Both players, I think, will just know more about each other's decks. Chat, just so you know, if you ever aren't sure about what to side in a matchup, the answer is probably nothing. Both these players, I think, would much rather have something other than Cern Scolding on Mornelli's side and something other than Engineer Explosives on Endicott's side. It's just a guessing game, and sometimes you lose.
Sometimes you guess wrong.
Sign of Draco's the draw for Endicott. And then Subtlety comes across for 3. Gonna go back Mornelli's way. Needs some sort of sweeper. Does he have Damnation or anything?
Nope.
Right, pick your poison. That's a good pickup.
So that'll deal with one of the creatures.
But just packs it in. 3 counter spells and a weak removal spell. And...
Endicott can just sacrifice the Subtlety, and then the Scion's lethal.
Oh, that's true. Good call. No, they make him sack an artifact.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Endicott, 2-0.